What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Kyle? I'm excited to get back into our Scott Fishbowl rosters here, as I feel like I'm building a team that's going to outproduce last year's debacle.
Well, it's not going to be hard to do that, but yes,
No.
I also feel like I'm on pace to avoid the travesty that was last season. And as Brian mentioned, we are here to talk some Scott Fishbowl SFBX. If you missed, our first episode, we talked about picks 1 through 8. Today we're going to kind of dive back into our teams, see where we're at, and see what we're thinking, where we're, where we maybe made a misstep, some players that we've been targeting, all that good stuff. But before I do that, if you are on Instagram, I created a Instagram page for the Angle of Pursuit. It's AOP Podcast. If you are on Instagram and use Instagram, please give us a follow there. As always, for these videos, mash that thumbs up, push subscribe. It really does a lot for us, helps other people check out our content. If you listen on the podcast version, iTunes and Stitcher both take 5-star reviews. It would also do a ton to help us gain other people watching our show. It helps keep this content flowing. So if you can do us a huge favor and do one or two of those things or all of those things, we would greatly appreciate it. And if you are watching live on YouTube with us, welcome. We are happy to have you because it's gonna be advantageous for you because we're gonna throw up our rosters here. And Brian, since you went first last time, I'll go first this time, and you can rip my team to shreds. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the banner so you can see everything. And there is my team through 18 picks, and I know you're going to be excited about a few of these names.
Yes.
So obviously I got through, I had J.K. Dobbins, I had Jimmy G as my second quarterback. I went Locktober. I went some Drew Lock for round 9, and I think we're simpatico there. I mean, here's where my brain was at a little bit mentally in terms of Drew Lock is I feel like Jimmy Garoppolo, I feel like he's kind of safe. I don't think he's going to add too much of a rushing element to really take him to that next level. But I feel like Drew Lock can take a step forward. So I feel like the pair both bakes in some safety, bakes in some upside, and kind of gives me that third option where I can rotate these guys through and having all three quarterbacks. Because there was a drop off the next guy. I mean, I would have been okay with Dwayne Haskins, but I felt a lot better with Drew Lock, even if it meant taking him a couple rounds earlier. I was really hoping Joe Burrow would be there for my 8th or 9th pick, but that clearly didn't happen. So how are you feeling about my quarterback situation and the 3 names I'm going to be running out all season long?
I mean, I think you hit on it perfectly right there with Jimmy G being more that kind of efficient, shorter passing guy who you're not going to get huge games out of him because we all know what San Francisco wants to do. And especially if they don't wind up trading Raheem Mostert, they're going to have a 3-headed backfield with Jerick McKinnon, hopefully healthy. And I could see if we're looking at your roster right now, you also paired Garoppolo with McKinnon, who could be, a surprise addition to the 49ers roster as he missed the majority of last year with an injury. And then the addition of Drew Lock, who you and I have talked about this on numerous occasions, that if we like the pieces around the quarterback or vice versa, we should also like the person throwing them the ball or catching the ball from the said quarterback. So in Drew Lock's case, they added KJ Hamler, they added Jerry Jeudy. They are going to get another season with Noah Fant. They added Melvin Gordon, and for all his pitfalls with the Chargers, he adds a different element to the running game with with Lindsey back there as more of like the quicker dude, and we have Gordon now who can kind of run downhill. I love Drew Lock, especially as your third quarterback and as quarterback 26 right there with the potential of him to have a huge year. Like, I think that's a steal in your in your area of round 9 right there.
For sure. And I love the point you hit on. And by no means, I want to preface this by saying I'm not comparing these two quarterbacks. I'm just simply going to say the year Patrick Mahomes broke out, everybody was all about Kareem Hunt, all about Tyreek Hill, all about Travis Kelce. These guys were all top 5 options. And if they were all going to be that, Patrick Mahomes had to be in that conversation. Now, obviously, Drew Lock's pieces aren't that level, but Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay can combine to be a borderline RB1, at least solid RB2. We love Noah Fant's potential upside at tight end. Cortland Sutton is somebody that a lot of people love. Adding Jerry Jeudy, adding KJ Hamler, they still have Deshaun Hamilton, even if just for a day or two. There's a lot to like about this offense, and if it all clicks like we expect some of the pieces to click, Drew Lock should benefit a lot from that. So I'm kind of happy about that. Tight end, I waited maybe a little too long, but I'm kind of
no way.
happy. I love getting Gronk. I mean, in terms of potential upside at the position, like I think if we're just going pure upside, I think he's right there and probably above them with like Zach Ertz, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, kind of that second or third tier of tight ends. I think if everything clicks with Gronk and the fact that Tom Brady's there with him, I think I think because Brady's there, I feel a lot better about his potential upside. But if you tell me that at the end of the year, Rob Gronkowski is the tight end 1 or tight end 2, like I wouldn't be shocked. I could also see him as the tight end 22 and things going horribly wrong. So that's why I took a few options. But in terms of upside at tight end 15, I don't think it gets much better.
No, I love your 3 consecutive tight end selections. I think that's fantastic. And Rob Gronkowski, especially as tight end 15, I mean, I think he's the most polarizing guy at the position this year. He was coming off of his worst season in the NFL, but that's also after a string of injuries. You could tell he was beat up. He mentally wasn't there anymore. And that whole season off seemed to have like reinvigorated himself, and he's got his body in shape. He lost some weight, and then like you said, being back with Tom Brady, and now they have some elite weapons on the outside to kind of take attention away from him. At tight end 15 for a guy that could potentially finish as tight end 1, tight end 2, like you said, I think that's crazy. And in round 10, and then a guy who we'll see on the next slide of my roster as well, and Ian Thomas. I mean, we're looking at a guy who's basically taking the reins from Greg Olsen, with Greg Olsen no longer there, and with a new quarterback, Teddy Gloves, who, I mean, we're going to probably see a lot of spread formations. Ian Thomas possibly spread out wide. They're going to be running a lot of 3 wides, a lot of short passing. And for a tight end 1 in the 12th round in a tight end premium league as the 21st tight end off the board, like that's insane to me.
Yeah. I was very excited to get him. I had hoped that either Dallas Goedert or Johnny Smith would fall to me. That was kind of one of my. I was gonna go double tight end at 9, 12, 10, 1, but with the drop off at quarterback and the other options still there, I was a lot more comfortable going, okay, I'm going to take a quarterback and hope one of those guys fall to me. Obviously they didn't, but landing Sternberger and Thomas, I feel like I have a lot of upside and a lot of potential. I definitely see a world, especially in this league, where I'm playing all 3 of these guys a lot of the weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially like we've talked about before, like tight ends are so important with this particular scoring format. And in Green Bay, who are looking at Aaron Rodgers, who he's got. I mean, you paired him with Allen Lazard, who kind of came on as the option 2 there for the Packers and Rodgers. But there's really nothing on the outside that scares people other than Devontae Adams, and there's got to be somebody to take over the middle of the field, and who better to do that than the Sternberger himself? So,
yeah,
I think that he's also a guy who has tremendous upside for a guy you're picking as tight end 20. And if we're looking at this in a redraft league, he's probably not even being picked.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a guy that's on a lot of people's radars for redraft as well.
Yeah, and I like targeting like the Packers offense, as you mentioned. Like we're both a little down on Aaron Jones this year, just kind of in terms of natural regression. It seems like Aaron Rodgers should have thrown more touchdowns last year based upon his average, touchdowns per target, his career marks. So if the passing game steps it up a little bit, the running game comes back, having a few pieces, even though I didn't get Rodgers like I kind of wanted, being able to get Sternberger, being able to get Lazard, especially at the prices I paid, I'm very happy. I'm also happy to get Brashad Perriman, who I think is truly terrible. But we saw last year that it really didn't
Yep.
matter. And he's stepping into a Jets offense that has 183 vacated targets, which is the third most of any team. Somebody's got to catch those balls. I still think Sam Darnold's not horrendous. So if I can get somebody catching passes from a team that's going to have to throw to keep up, a true deep threat and potentially more, getting Brashad Perriman in round 16, I think was good. My biggest quandary, I think, is the running back situation. Like obviously Mixon and Todd Gurley, I love. J.K. Dobbins, I think, has tremendous upside, but it's kind of after that. Although, like
I love
Latavius,
Latavius Murray still.
I don't understand it. He had a great season. He was above and beyond kind of what we expected, and
Mhm.
his ADP is worse this year. So
It doesn't make any sense.
I was happy to have him fall in my lap. I think he can get touchdowns. He can get first downs. And then I'm just taking shots. I'm probably going to have to take a few more shots at running back. But Carlo, like we saw last year, what happened to Seattle's backfield. Like I loved Rashad Penny, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Chris Carson has nagging injuries. Travis Homer's there, but they clearly got other pieces because they didn't trust him in the playoffs. And then we'll see with Jerick McKinnon. I mean, if Mostert ends up on another team, McKinnon all of a sudden becomes a lot more interesting. And it's funny because right after I took these guys, it was a run of kind of aging. We don't know exactly what we'll get with Devonta Freeman, with Adrian Peterson, and there was one other guy I forget, but yeah, it was like a whole run of older running backs. But I mean, I feel like these two guys have legit shots at having a decent role in offenses that like to run the football a ton. So getting that potential to go with the upside I have at the top, I think makes a lot of sense. And in a league like this, or if you're looking at like best balls, I think drafting either elite guys and then really waiting, or kind of grabbing a ton in that middle chunk makes the most sense in terms of roster construction.
Yeah, something you said the last time when we reviewed our like first 8 rounds, which really hit home was, in a league like this, when you're not only playing against the people that are in your league, the 12 other or the 11 other people, but you're playing against the other 1,399 people as well.
Yep.
You're looking for guys that have the best upside, and a guy like McKinnon or Carlos Hyde, who if they were to take over the reins in the backfield and become the alpha, we're looking at two teams that were top 10 in the NFL in rushing. And very similarly with Latavius Murray there, who we saw him perform at an RB1 level when Alvin Kamara was missing time. So, and even with Alvin Kamara still there, New Orleans likes to run the ball so much,
Yep.
especially down by the red zone. Like Latavius Murray is another great steal in this particular format of scoring.
Yeah, and Kyle Shanahan's no, he's not afraid to use anybody, and whoever's the best option is going to. I mean, Jeff
Whoever's
Wilson had
getting
some
hot.
Yep. And there's a non-zero chance Jerick McKinnon's your starter because that's what they brought him here for. I know.
Well, and we saw him do it in Minnesota.
Yep, he's got the potential, and like people loved him going to San Francisco. They thought he was a top 2 round pick, and my approach to this backfield is always draft one of the later guys because
yep,
there's going to be so much parity and there's going to be so much mix and match that paying a top 5 round pick, even on an offense that's going to run as much as they do, I don't like it. Let's shift our focus and let's take a look at the rest of your team and see where you're sitting at. And we'll check out Brian's and I guess so. Yeah, so we got all the way through Rojo. You got J.K. Dobbins in round 9, which is highway robbery. I'm not really sure how you pulled that off. Brandon Cooks, if you want to read about my love for Brandon Cooks, go to fakepigskin.com. That dude is set up to be a top 10 or 15 option this year at the position.
Just please don't get a concussion. That's all I can say.
That is the thing. And but this is also a guy that's played 4 straight years with 16 games. This is a guy that's seen 114 or more targets in all those years, 1,000 plus yards. He's walking into a team that just lost DeAndre Hopkins. The Texans have 167 vacated targets, which is good for 4th most. He's also a guy that has left multiple teams and been awesome. He went to New England, was incredible. Went to the Rams, was incredible. Like he's shown the ability to be able to step in, produce right away, and he's in an offense that has a really talented quarterback who's going to need somebody to throw the ball to. And I know people like Will Fuller, and yes, when Will Fuller is healthy, can be incredible. But it's so few and far between. That guy hasn't played more than 11 games, I believe, for 3 straight seasons, or averages 11 games, maybe 14, 7, and 10 or something. But it's all in my article. Go to fakepigskin.com. I love that pick. Sony Michel and Zach Moss. I don't necessarily love either player, but I like what you're doing. I think there's a lot of potential for first downs, like we talked about with my guys and Latavius and Jerick McKinnon and Carlos Hyde. Like, I think Zach Moss has a non-zero chance of taking over the lead role in this offense. And we'll have to talk about this at some point, but I don't know what to do with Darrynton Evans in year 1 because Derrick Henry got paid.
I don't get it.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I hated it, and I still don't love it. But if you look at the way the contract's structured, it's really not that bad, or at least that's what I'm trying to convince myself. And it's only it's 12 per for the 2 years, and they can get rid of them. So I don't know. We'll see. I love Eno Benjamin. Like, I love that string of running backs you have. I think there's potential potential starting running back in a decent offense. I think Eno Benjamin's good enough to start for the Cardinals. I know everyone loves Kenyon Drake, but we'll see. Yeah, and then your receivers, you got Brashad Perriman as well, so obviously simpatico there. And then Old Man Fitzy in round 16.
I think he's my favorite pick of the draft so far.
I mean, in a league where you get points for first downs, you're gonna get half-point PPR offense that should throw a ton. I think it makes a ton of sense. People are always quick to put players out to pasture, and oftentimes I want to be a year or two early just because when they fall off, they fall off. But when you're paying a 16th rounder, wide receiver 63, if it doesn't work out, I think you can move on and fix your team from there.
Yeah, I was looking at with those string of wide receivers that I took with Brashad Perriman, Larry Fitzgerald, and Hunter Renfrow. Perriman, I was kind of looking at him as like that explosion guy. We saw him make tons of big plays with Tampa, and with the Jets now minus Robbie Anderson, they're going to be in need of a downfield threat, and they're drafting of Denzel Mims. He's kind of more of that like slants and stuff like that. So Perriman kind of fits that mold. And then with Fitz and Renfrow quickly became a favorite of Derek Carr, looking as his shorter receiver, and in a league where first downs are so paramount. Renfrow and Fitzgerald, both of them are going to be guys that their quarterbacks are going to be leaning on to get those 7 yards, 8 yards, not necessarily down the field. So they're not going to have explosion weeks, but their floors are going to be decent enough that I'm not going to be mad that I have to play those guys.
Totally. And I think when you have like a Godwin, Allen Robinson, Brandon Cooks receiver start, I think being able to mix and match the other options with them is going to make so much sense. Like, you could easily have 3 of the top 12, top 10 receivers come season end with Godwin, Robinson, and Cooks.
That would be awesome.
I feel like that has a ton of potential. I guess if I had and then obviously there's a lot of crossover. I think talking as much as we do helps, having Ian Thomas, having Brashad Perriman. But we need to talk Andy Dalton. Don't love it as a third quarterback. That being said, when this move happened, when we talked about what he got paid, when we talked about the issues surrounding Dak, if you're gonna target a backup, not sure I hate it. I think he was clearly brought in for a reason, and if Dak doesn't play for some reason, being able to throw to Gallup and Cooper and um, whatnot, I think will be pivotal. And I think you're gonna have to. I mean, we'll see, but there's always a quarterback or two that shake free early, either that first waiver period or within the first week or two. And you're probably going to have to be aggressive on grabbing whoever that is, whether that's Marcus Mariota, whether that's one of the Charger quarterbacks, whoever ends up starting. There's a couple guys that could make sense in that range, but I think if you can hit on that guy, you have a legit chance at winning the whole dang thing.
So my reasoning behind taking Andy Dalton was I had intended on taking a third quarterback somewhere in like the 13th, 14th round area, but every time it would roll back around to me, and as you could see, I was right in the middle of the draft board. So I always had that like 12 or 13 picks in between. It would either be two or the guy before me would always snipe me on Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, just kind of that security blanket. So it got to the point where I decided to just kind of fill up on skill positions, and with the goal of taking the guy who I think right now holds the most value, not only in real life, but in fantasy in terms of a backup, that if he were to step into the starter's role, he's stepping into a position where he's a top 10 quarterback immediately with the weapons that he's afforded with the particular team he's on. And that for me is the red rifle, Andy Dalton.
I would say for those in Dynasty, especially Superflex Dynasty, if Andy Dalton is still on your waiver wire or you can acquire him on the cheap, I would highly recommend doing that. As Schefter just tweeted out, that Dak and the Cowboys were unable to get a deal done before the deadline. And now, by no means am I saying that there's no way they get a deal done next offseason, because it's very likely. And but there's a non-zero chance that a young enough Andy Dalton, who we've seen be really successful, especially when he has the weapons and the protection, becomes the starter next year. Like that. I mean, it's not a massive chance, but I think there's definitely a chance, and one I'd be willing to make some swings on. All right, Brian, as we get ready to head into our final few picks, got to round out our draft, got to see how it goes, and then those first couple waiver wire periods will be ready, because when you see a player you want, you got to be ready to attack, and you are probably going to pay more than you really want to. But that's sometimes how these leagues work, especially as you mentioned,
Mason Rudolph last year,
or Kyle Allen or whatever. But it's when you're going for upside, you're going for potential, like, basically a tournament style. You need to hit those guys, and if you can get value early, that's when you're gonna really pay off. So hopefully you get that and not an egg, and you're really happy with your team. But so guys, we are going to hopefully get some other people on to talk about their roster, some of their decision making, and kind of ways to approach this league. So make sure you are checking out the YouTube. Definitely hit subscribe there. You can also hit the little bell button for notifications. I know a lot of people don't always find out when our videos post, but if you hit the bell button, it'll send you a little email. It'll give you a little notification. Hey, a new video has been launched, and we're trying to record a few shows a week and get as much content up as we can. Anticipating a season, fingers crossed, but we're doing what we can. So Brian and I are hopefully going to finish SFB strong. We'll keep you guys updated on the where our teams are and our rosters are, and hopefully we'll be able to say at the end of the season, we are hoisting the championship trophy. Wouldn't that be nice? Or at least make the playoffs. Let's go with that.
Those are some mountainous goals there.
Yep. So, all right, for Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.